Hello, everybody. This is the IOTA Community Discord. This is the IOTA Shimmer Community Governance Call on Thursday, the 23rd of June. Um, as always, we meet here every Thursday, talk about governance, about the upcoming governance challenges for us, about what the Treasury is doing, cool stuff, and as always, you all have a chance to participate or just listen in, get infos, ask questions on what is planned in this topic. Um, from my side, we had started last week with the um, up the planned update of our Shimmer governance framework. For those of you that doesn't know it, is basically the basic rule set for all governance decisions and procedures in the Shimmer network. It's a quite long document that we designed quite a year ago, yeah, or a little bit over a year ago. We started with this whole endeavor, and it has served us quite well in the first couple of votes that we had. Um, but now it's a little bit of time to review it and to update some procedures and processes that we have figured out are not perfect yet, and also to include regulations and procedures for the upcoming Shimmer EVM, which will also have some governance functionalities that we have to take into account. And so basically, I attempted to draft what, in my opinion, would need to be changed in this document. And to make it a little bit easier for everybody to follow, I um, used actually GitHub to do this. And what you see here in my screen sharing is basically a Google document where I copied screenshots from GitHub in with all the changes that I propose. And with the Google Doc, it's nice because then we can add comments here and keep track on if there are people requesting some changes or have questions around that, which is not so easy to do in GitHub. And so basically what you see with this color markings is this kind of rosé color is deletions from the document, and the blue highlighted would be the new addings. Yeah, and so either stuff is crossed out or highlighted, and here you see all the bluish marked would be changed. And even if there's just one letter changed from capital to small, it is always tracked in GitHub. And so it's very, very, very nice to really follow up all, even the smallest changes, if there is a comma or whatever changed in a document. Usually that's used for writing code, because I mean there every comma is really, really important. But it also works very well for documents if you do it, and if you really want to see and highlight a change to a previous version. We went already to quite some um, of my proposed changes in the last session. So it's not so much anymore to go through. As always, this is kind of the first step. The document is posted in the governance channel. So if anybody would like to go through it, help us, make some comments, has some questions, very, very invited. The document is open for comments, so you can just basically mark anything that you don't understand or the way you think it should be different, and leave a comment in the document or in the channel, and then we can talk about it in the next session or in the chat. Um, so we went through most of the important things already. Um, one thing that we had not yet covered is the part about seasons. Um, we we did put in seasons mainly for the reason of having giving governance decisions time to prove them a little bit. So let's assume the community has made a decision to change something or to implement a process or something. What we wanted to avoid is that somebody directly after this vote comes in and submits a proposal that changes the whole thing again to the opposite or to the old state before. Yeah? And so the seasons fulfill this purpose because basically they give proposals a certain amount of time um, to stay in place to see how it works. Usually, if you want to change something that has been voted in by the community in a season, you have to wait for submitting a new proposal that would change that thing again until the next season is reached. And in the first attempt, we had basically seasons had some dates put in there, which is a pretty unpractical thing because you have recurring every year the same thing. And so my proposal would basically to stick to 4 seasons and just stick to the usual quarters that you use in the year. Um, I was also thinking about maybe to go down to 3 seasons instead of 4. Um, but yeah, I don't know if people have an opinion on that. Otherwise, we could stick with the 4 seasons and just fit it into the usual quarters from January till end of March and from April till end of June and stuff like this. So it's easier to remember for people.
I think if we just call them quarters, it just makes
Quarter.
it a lot easier.
That's
Yeah,
actually
because what was it? It was one vote per quarter or something like that. And if someone got
yeah.
if a vote got denied, then it would need a whole year. So, you know what I mean? Like it sounded snazzy, but it just seems like it just adds,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, then there will be some easy word changing because there's all blah 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 season. Then we can change that to. I think I like quarters. Yeah.
And then we don't even need to explain the seasons. It would just
Yeah. Yeah.
be basically what's the interval of voting to not. I think the
Yeah.
whole point was so we can get burned out on votes, but
Yeah. That's
we
actually
even see that's not a big deal.
yeah.
So,
So you were basically just going with Q1, Q2, Q3, and everybody knows that. Yeah.
hmm
That's easy
hmm
going. Yeah. Cool. Um, what else here? Basically, I just did. Here's again the thing to call the treasury votes and the governance votes. Yeah, just to remember, a treasury vote would be everything that asks to spend funds that are held in the EVM governance contracts, and a governance vote would be just anything else basically that is voted in Firefly about rules and regulations and frameworks, things like this. But the specific thing about activating the Shimmer EVM governance system with its smart contracts would just be called a governance vote, a treasury vote, so it's easier directly to follow through the process and to know what is actually asked for. What else here? I added the word again. That makes sense, and that's it, I think. Um, Next would be the allowing flexible parameter changes by soft consensus in phase 2. This is something that we had implemented as basically a starting condition um, to give the governance moderator group some specific rights of changing certain parameters of this framework while we implemented it because we didn't have any real idea and any real life knowledge how our proposed governance framework would actually work. And so if there would have been a parameter that would have been completely off the rail, um, and we would have potentially locked us in a governance lockdown because somehow it wouldn't have been possible to propose things like this, yeah. And so we said, okay, let's give the governance moderators group of trusted community members that has worked on designing this framework and is observing the governance processes, give them some specific rights on some low key uncritical parameters, and see basically through the experience and learn how they can change that without burdening the whole community in a Firefly vote with a simple parameter change of setting 1 weeks to 2 weeks or things like this. Yeah? And so I don't want to touch this really. I actually only um, have, let me see. So there basically I don't call it update, I call it document all parameter changes, um, and um, keep the rest in place. I added here GitHub and the IOTA wiki will then be adjusted to reflect those changes. Yeah, so this was not part of it before, but as we have the things now in the IOTA wiki also, so if the moderators would change something, of course, this will then also need to go into the documentation. Yeah, and we'll do a pull request in the IOTA wiki GitHub and adjust such things. Um, the only thing here is the probation period of parameter changes can be extended for an additional 2 seasons, always through a governance vote. So currently, basically, um, we are ending or we're reaching the end of this fast that we had envisioned. And so I would actually propose that we can every 6 months continue to extend this. Maybe we do it now once because we didn't have so much votes. And so there might still be some parameters to change. And I would basically say do it, extend it now for another 6 months, and then have the possibility to again extend it. What we can also think about next time, we say, okay, this is what we want, remove a little bit power from the moderators, then we remove this paragraph in the next one. Yeah, but I think we didn't have so many votes, so we didn't have so much experience with the framework. Um, and I think it's not a bad thing to be able to do such small changes by the moderators. Um, yeah, and removal of the seasonal but I think this was further above. So the seasonal specification votes, we talked about it already last time. Asking every 3 months the community about, are these little changes okay? What seems a little bit unfeasible and unnecessary, in my opinion. But yeah, that's very open to discuss this. Um, timing and planning of proposals and votes. That's quite an important topic. Also something that was a little bit. Remember the counter proposal that was coming in. There we had already some hustle around. The timing was not perfect because these things. Yeah, so I think it's good that we had thought about this whole scenario and implemented it. Um, Here, I actually only propose to add the voting option for the Shimmer EVM in the text, and um, the rest basically leave. And I would say that we should maybe also move from 2 moderators to 3 moderators for the approval for the normal governance votes, because this is what we will very likely have through the multisig wallet anyway. Yeah, so if we have the 4 moderators, we're likely going to set up a 3 or 4 multisig. So for treasury votes, you would already need 3 moderator approvals. Um, And so I think it just makes sense for consistency to also require three moderator approvals for the normal governance vote in Firefly. A question I would have is basically here if we still have the thing that basically I removed this. Yeah, you see it's rosé painted here, so I basically removed this thing that also only one mod and one admin are okay to approve this. I think this whole involvement of the um, of the admins of the forum, basically Antonio, Mark, and myself, is kind of not necessary. If the moderators are there, um, we won't need such an extension that also just one mod and the admin can do stuff like this. So I would just say, okay, three moderators need to approve vote for phase three, and then it's fine.
Yeah, I think that was just to make sure that someone from the community was kind of involved.
Yeah.
But if it's just, would we then add a moderator to have to then meet the 3 of 5 kind of thing? Would it be?
Currently would be three or four, yeah. So we have four. I mean, we can add. I also honestly would like to know a little bit how active. So we should look into it. I mean, we have yeah. So it's not much happening, but we also should check out, especially with the new changes, if
Mhm.
all the moderators are still okay to be. If
Mhm.
not, then we should ask if somebody wants to fill in
That's
positions. Yeah,
true. True.
yeah.
Okay.
If we should go up to five, maybe a good idea, especially also for the multisig, to have a little bit more redundancy if one is failing off. That's actually a good point.
Mm.
We can. I'll make a note. We should think about this a little bit. Maybe ask around if somebody is interested and a good candidate.
I wonder if Linus would want to
Maybe that's a good
support that.
thing. Yeah, yeah. Maybe not a bad idea. Yeah.
Cool.
Um, okay, then this is still about planning of the timing. Here, basically changing the text because it was always talking about only Firefly stuff. So basically remove the Firefly thing and add the same text with commencing and adding basically the stuff that is needed for the phase three vote, especially the multi-signature, to put the proposal live into the EVM governance system. So this is, of course, this is an additional task for the moderators. If it's a treasury proposal, then they will have to create the proposal and send it live with their signatures through the multisig wallet. Then the rest is, I think, here just like little text corrections. Um, there's also text corrections, remove Firefly. That's it, just wording stuff. Okay, next one. The cooldown period that we had to give, first of all, people the chance, if there was a decision and they don't like it, to basically sell and go or whatever, or also the time to invoke an emergency proposal. So I think it's also good that we thought about this whole thing already a year ago and implemented such a measure also for the regular Firefly votes. Now that we have or that we will get the Shimmer EVM governance, we will anyway have this time lock period. So the governance contract will have a time lock after the vote, and So I basically added this wording here because it's actually implemented in the EVM governance contract where the time lock pauses any execution of the decision. And I think we had, because we had 7 days for Firefly cooldown period, I would actually propose also to set the time lock for these treasury spendings also to 7 days. Well, I think it's kind of not a, we are normally not in a rush to release funds from the treasury there, yeah? And so 3, why not make it 7 to have really enough time, prepare everything, yeah. But also this is just like, because we had 7 days before for the Firefly vote, thought, okay, for consistency, put also 7 days time lock for the treasury spending. Um, but if anybody has any other preferences there, I think yeah, less than 3, I wouldn't go. Um, More than 7 seems unnecessary. So yeah, I think 7 might be maybe a good thing. Only if we would figure out, okay, we need quick funding, but then yeah, whatever we set here can also then again be changed, but it needs a governance vote to change that. Yeah. And then there was just basically some wording thing. It was a little bit strange wording here, I think. Yeah, the rest was just basically including the EVM time lock governor. Um, Here it's also just wording changes, blah, suggestion. I tried to avoid speaking from my own position here because here, right, I suggest, which is a bit not correct. Here is the thing going from 2 to 3 for our moderators. And here it's also, this is about emergency moves against the proposal, so the emergency vote. Again, wording basically only to make it better understandable. And yeah, removing this part, which is kind of only explaining stuff. Then this is the template. Yeah, the template for any proposals. Also here, remove a little bit of stuff, make it a little bit shorter or better explained. That's actually the only thing. Also this stuff here, wording changes. Then for the specification in the proposal, because we have now the governance stuff, of course, if you the treasury stuff, so if somebody submits a treasury proposal, he or she definitely needs to exactly specify, really exactly, what should be spent. Yeah, and so this minimum needs to be really the name of the asset that should be spent. Symbol helps a lot. The contract address, because we are talking about smart contract assets, and so like you probably know it in DeFi, so every token that you use in MetaMask or in any protocol has a specific contract address where this token basically has been created from. And so this is actually the only real identifier how you can identify if it's really a token. So you can have in Shimmer EVM you can have 12 different Shimmer tokens. They all will be called Shimmer. They will have the symbol Shimmer, but the only distinguisher and how where you can really figure out which is the real Shimmer token will be the contract address that where this token has been created. So this is super important that if somebody proposes something, the contract address needs to be there. The contract address needs to be checked and double checked by the by the moderators that it's really the correct token. And especially if we would have yeah, several kind of tokens in the treasury, um, they all are only identified by their different contract address. So that's pretty important. And of course, the amount of assets that should be spent needs to be exactly specified. The receiver address, who will receive the address who will receive the assets, and yeah, name also works, helps a lot. Yeah, if you say, okay, we want this amount of tokens to go to the community Shimmer community treasury, because then for the moderators it's easier to really figure out, okay, is this the real correct receiving address of the Shimmer treasury, or did somebody put in some kind of strange address without a name? It may be difficult. This is not sure if this is 100% everything. Maybe somebody has some idea what to add here or how to structure it better, but definitely I think this is like the minimum that somebody would need to specify in the proposal. I think we will work on, once we have the system there, we will work on making the template, maybe creating some fields directly where you can really put this stuff in to make it visually look better. But from just the explaining, I think that's minimum what we need to add. Here it's basically just adding a little bit sentence that explains it a little bit better. Then remove the Firefly stuff again and add the Shimmer EVM proposal thing, which is consistently through the whole protocol. We just know that we have to add these things. Yeah, here is actually, as we have seen it also now with the first Firefly votes. So like the implementation that we have in Firefly now is that we will anyway, in all votes in the Shimmer Firefly wallet, we will always have the abstain option there. I know we didn't have it in the first votes in the IOTA wallet, but technically how the Firefly team implemented it, and also technically how Hornet participation thing is set up, abstain is anyway was always there as an option, and actually as also the Shimmer EVM system will have abstain as one of the options. So you will have basically in Shimmer EVM, you will have yes, no, and abstain. And so I actually think it makes sense to add this as one of our voting options, yeah, in all protocols. Because in Firefly, the people will anyway see it because it's there. And in the EVM, it's also there. So I think it should be represented in the framework to make it consistent. Yeah. And so basically, in my opinion, it makes sense. It's actually also a good option so people can really say, yeah, I have participated in this vote, but I cannot make a decision. But I still signal that, okay, I've seen this. I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. I acknowledge that this vote is happening, but I don't have a real opinion on it. But it's better than just to not vote. Yeah. So it's actually abstain is actually a good option in my opinion. Yeah? Added it here. If somebody thinks we should do it different, yeah, but technically you cannot remove it from either from Firefly and also not from the EVM. So it just makes sense to have it here in the protocol. Okay, and then actually, I think we're through. In the original framework, we had two more sections, which was Rationale, and then there was like a knowledge library. You can see it here in the in the wiki. It's still there. So this is basically left over from the proposal as it has been in the governance forum. But actually, in my opinion, this is not stuff that needs to be there in the specification in the wiki, because actually all the rules are in section 4. So the section 4 is the governance specification. Everything in section 4 describes everything that we need to know. Section 5 and stuff is only basically giving reasons why we have come to these conclusions, why we did design it a year ago, we thought about this and this. So there's a lot of explanation. There's really a lot of text here, which actually I think is not necessary to have it as a part of the documentation and the specification of this framework anymore. Yeah, it was good to have it to explain what we wanted to do and why we came to such things. But thinking about, okay, this document will stay like this the next couple of years, um, you don't need to explain and reason about all this in the wiki. Yeah, for a proposal, it makes sense when voters need to decide on this thing. Yeah. Also, if we make a new proposal, we will write a new rationale why we wanted to make these changes of the governance framework now. Yeah, but this is basically the old rationale, and it doesn't serve any purpose anymore in my opinion. And so I think it just can be completely removed. It will shorten the proposal and shorten the framework a lot. And it doesn't really make sense to have it here anymore. That's my thing. Yeah. Same with the glossary. It explains a lot. It explains this and that, but it technically you don't want to have this as part of a governance specification because it doesn't serve any purpose. It's just an additional explainer of why things are how they are. Yeah. So that would be my idea. Shorten this thing, remove all the unnecessary things that have not something really to do with the process, and make it. Yeah, because I don't know how many people have read this whole thing anyway. Yes, so this I think are the things that I would propose to change. Yeah, I know it's there's a lot of wording. There are um, some things that definitely need to be thought through. And as I said, would be great if people find some time to read through it, make some comments. We'll just say, okay, looks great. I like it. Let's do it like this. Also fine. Um, and then again, this is also not yet really finalized because the stuff around the EVM is still a little bit in the flux. It really depends on, first of all, the smart contract team. They have to launch EVM. That's the main focus. And once EVM goes slowly live, then we will have time to really deploy those contracts, test out stuff. During the testing, we will likely also figure out a few things that can be improved. So this is still work to do on this framework, and it's not yet finalized. Goody, goody, good. Yeah, so this was my little rollover through the governance framework. Maybe anyone has some questions. Always happy. Otherwise, JD, do you maybe want to go through the liquidation thing or about some stuff about the treasury?
Sure. I say thanks, Philo, for doing all that. I think it looks really good. I think definitely, well, I'll have some time to see the little changes, and it's good to see this evolve as, the network evolves. So looking forward to it. Yeah, so on the treasury side, we are coming up to the end of the first quarter. Um, just a small update on sort of the financial standings. We at a current Shimmer price. Let's see, what's the current Shimmer price? As we were going 53. Okay, so if we put in 53 cents, 1 second. That kind of sets us at, if we were to pay, we still have 320 outstanding in payments. If we were to pay that out, that would leave us with a value of about 154,000 US dollars, or sorry, 1,054,000 USD, which comes to about 20% of all the Shimmer. If we were to pay out that Shimmer today at that current price. So if coming to the end of the first quarter is pretty good, if we were sitting at, let's say, 0.068 where we were for a while, we would be at 25%, and that's including all administration and grants. So I think we're a good. We used a little bit more than I would have liked. That's more due to the price. Of course, we haven't done those payouts yet. A lot of that will wait until we're in the Marshall Islands. So potentially the Shimmer price will be a little higher if Bitcoin keeps going as it is. That would be nice. Yeah, grants this sprint. Again, we're looking at the DeFi ones. We went through what we're reviewing. We're honing it down into what we think will be good for this sprint. We're doing our due diligence, which is really good. And then as we update on the Marshall Islands, we will be all our paperwork has been approved. So in the matter of days to week, I am told from my DAO, our charter will be issued, which means we will be a legal LLC entity in the Marshall Islands, which our operating agreement will essentially be governed by the Shimmer governance framework on GitHub. So another thing to note is once this phase 3 passes with this governance update and it updates in GitHub, that is the ultimate overlying regulation that the Tangle Treasury DAO LLC has to follow, essentially. And we are, as committee members, legally bound to that. So one thing that I think was not necessarily, we didn't capture, and we will add in a lessons learned, is a liquidation process. So let me just find where I put that. Where did I put that? Because I just brought it up on.
You posted it in the Tangle Treasury channel.
I don't think I did the HackMD one. I just did this yesterday. So,
okay,
yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. 1 second. Let me go to view. I can go like this. There we go. Preview. There we go. Okay. Okay. So what we're looking at is a liquidation process. So once the Tangle DAO LLC committee is official in the Marshall Islands, we also need a multi-sig Snosis safe, which is being developed by Sevrox. And we need EVM on mainnet, I believe, to have all the variables in place where the committee officially takes over the Shimmer and allotted for the 1 year, and then can liquidate it. So we discussed and came up with a liquidation process that the whole foundation of this process is to ensure that when we liquidate an asset, it has zero or minimal impact on the market price. So to do that, we basically prioritize OTC trade. And then if we can't do an OTC trade, we would do a DEX liquidation, a decentralized exchange within our ecosystem. And if we can't do that, then we would look at a centralized exchange. For liquidations over 10,000, we would look at OTC trades. For liquidations under 10,000 USDT, we would look at a DEX. Now that, of course, is all going to be dependent upon, are there DEXs? Can we get on exchanges, etc. However, regardless of if we use a DEX, a centralized exchange, or a OTC trade, if there's a 10% price drop within a 24-hour period, then the liquidation would be halted. And this actually was from another organization. I can't remember where I got that from, but Still not too sure of how they evaluate the medium-term market conditions. I need to do some research on that. But they had a pretty detailed liquidation
You,
process that
I,
this was based
I
off.
think what a lot of are doing is using moving averages, like 14-day or 21-day moving
Okay.
average of the price. That's usually what they do because it actually it takes out the volatility that you have in some
Hmm.
assets. So if you, I think now moving average price of Shimmer would be somewhere at 55, 56 cents. Yeah. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
if it goes up rapidly, also it would slowly move up. So usually, I think 14 days and 21-day moving average is a very good thing because otherwise it's difficult for teams. Yeah, today you think, okay, you get 100K Shimmer tokens, then there's overnight something happening, and tomorrow you just get 90K Shimmer tokens. And so moving average is usually a very good way of balancing this whole volatility out.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
A lot of treasuries
Uh,
use it. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, look into that. Probably get with you offline to try to refine that. Cool. So, and then with each of those OTC DEX central exchange, we have a certain process to follow. So, OTC clients are brought to the program or co-lead. And this is something that can go on to future program leads or co-leads. All OTC shall have a minimum of 10,000 USDT and an upper threshold of 100,000. Um, Sales will be given a -5 to +5% discount. So this is basically just to say, now I've been trying to see what is the industry standard, and I've been told, anything from 10 to 25% discount. What does that mean? So the more volatile an asset, the more a discount a person will want if they're doing a purchase of OTC, because if they buy it at, $1 today, it may go down 30% tomorrow. So they want to basically hedge their risk against that. However, a committee member also said, that's one thing to have volatility. Another thing is to have lack of liquidity. If there's lack of liquidity on all exchanges, then someone that has $100,000 literally cannot buy. So if it's $1, but there's no liquidity, even if they either put in um, limit buys that will never get filled, or if they do a market order, it's going to shoot that price up 200%. So it's actually benefits them to come to us, which we then may say, sure, we'll sell you $100,000 worth of Shimmer, but we're going to charge you $105,000,
Yeah.
something like that. So there's no real variable to like quantitative to say this is the volatility at current date, this is the liquidity at current date. I think it's just going to be a discussion that the program lead and the co-lead has with the OTC buyer. But the point is that we can't go below negative. We can't offer them more than a 5% discount. So if they're buying 100,000 worth of Shimmer, um, we would, as low as can go, is say we'll sell it to you for 95,000.
Mm.
Um,
I
and
wouldn't.
then the mark. Go ahead.
No, I would even say, I mean, 10K, I wouldn't give 5% for 10K. Like if someone is coming with
Right.
100K, yeah. But um,
Right.
the good thing is in the DEXs, you will actually see the price impact very good. Yeah. So that's the cool thing
Yeah.
on DEXs. You basically see exactly, okay, if I buy for 100K now at market, you will have X price impact. So this will give you guys a good view on what terms you can give people, yeah, so to
Right.
avoid that. You also will need to make, maybe that's something Paolo can do. You need to make an OTC form, yeah, for all the
Yep.
sales to track
Yep.
that shit. Otherwise, they will come after you for the tax and
Yep.
AML. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Uh, Market price. Currently, the only place that I've seen historical data for Shimmer is CoinGecko. I could be totally wrong.
CMC,
Um,
CMC has it.
but CMC, for whatever reason, do you see Shimmer on my, or CoinMarketCap on my screen?
Yeah, yeah.
So, uh, So last time we were looking as a committee, analytics was not there for Shimmer,
Okay.
and there was no historical price. So if you see it, please let me know.
Ah,
Um,
maybe you
but
can
yeah, anyways,
grab it from the API, I think. Yeah.
I think once we have EVM, we're going to have
Yeah.
much more Pith we know is out there, and maybe we'll get on DeFi Llama. Who knows? So I think there's going to be much more market price to go off of, and I'll also add the 14-day, 21-day average because that would also be used such as an OTC price. You're
Yeah.
saying that is used? Okay. Here's moving to show price. Okay. And then until we have smart contract escrow services available, the process would be the Treasury and OTC buyer on an exchange rate that is set as foundation price, previous day's average price, or we'll do that moving average. Either way, the point is that we're agreeing on a price. We'll agree on the number of tokens. We'll agree on the discounts, and then we'll have all this in writing, which I'll talk to Paulo about too. Um, and I am getting him now next after he's done the contracts for us to work on an actual contract with the grant receiver, basically to cover our AML to make sure they're not going to fund,
Yeah.
terrorism or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, as such, agreement is then provided to the committees and requires majority vote. So if someone was to come to me as a program lead and I need to liquidate and I get an agreement and we get it, probably prior to writing, and then we'll do a majority vote with the other committee members to say, here is the deal that I'm looking at. This is what we need to liquidate, and these are the parameters upon which I would like to liquidate. And then we need majority vote. This is part of the actual operating agreement that anytime the program or co-lead binds the treasury, such as through officially signing an agreement, a majority vote must be captured first by the other committee members. Again, until escrow contract, smart contract can be done, the OTC buyer will have to send the USDT first. I mean, that's just how it is, to our Binance USDT or Shimmer USDT wallet. Then the treasury will send the Shimmer to the individual, of course, after a signed contract. Once the funds are confirmed, then the program or co-lead would send the Shimmer to the individual, and that would be done on a multi-sig signature. After each and every one of these, whether it's a decentralized exchange, OTC, or centralized exchange, a 24-hour period will be held before the receiver receives. That's a typo. I have to change that. Before we publicize the trade. Of course, it's on chain. People can track it if they want to, but basically, we're not going to publicize anything to try to avoid market manipulation by others. And then the OTC buyer will have to KYC, and that will probably be our KYC AML policy, but I'll double check with Paulo on that. Decentralized exchanges, these are the three known ones. I know there will be more, so I put in there any DEX can be added or removed by a committee majority vote. So if all of a sudden we see a new DEX and it's trusted and we want to liquidate on there, we go that way. The program lead assesses the token exchange on each DEX. Each DEX must allow for multi-sig signing or else we can't use it. The lowest DEX will be used, meaning the lowest rate. And so let's say there's three DEXs and two of the DEX offers the lowest rate and then within 2% of that lowest rate, and then another DEX offers one 10% higher. We just won't use that other 10%. And then whatever those lowest DEXs are, we'll spread that liquidation out to try to minimize the impact there. Each liquidation will be completed with only a maximum of 1% slippage. And then, of course, the multi-sig transaction completes. And then same thing, 24-hour period before we publicize. Centralized exchange. Now, Bitforex, I know you don't need a KYC to do an account, so we would be able to do that. Bitfinex and Bitfinando, we would have to set up a um, corporate account, which once we get set up in the Marshall Islands, I'll start that. Um, Now, this is something. So, if we don't have a custody provider or a third party provider sign contract that can liquidate for us, and there's no current decentralized exchanges, and there's no current OTC buyers, and we do need to liquidate USDT, and I'm curious of thoughts here from the crowd. Um, the the option then could be to the program lead basically individually liquidates that amount. So the risk would, of course, be the program lead would momentarily have full control of those funds um, and could steal them, but then putting a max amount, like let's say a program lead is going to get X amount for the year. So if he steals such a small amount, he then, of course, he'd be fired and lose all the other amount. So I put a
What
limit of 10,000. What's it?
Yeah, what you can do actually to avoid that, I'm pretty sure this is possible. First of all, you can implement whitelisted addresses. So basically, if you would, let's say you get a corporate account in Bitfinex, um,
Mhm.
and then you can basically say, okay, there's only one whitelisted address, which will be the Treasury multisig, that can where tokens can be withdrawn, and
Mhm.
adding or changing or removing a whitelisted address is usually set up so that you need two-factor authorization
Mhm.
and some specific more. You could, I think, actually, you will be able to set this up that a change can only be done through multisig or stuff like this. Yeah. So especially for a corporate account, because
Yeah.
it's kind of a common thing. You also don't want to give your corporate casual guy that is doing the
Right.
accounting the rights to transfer a couple of $1 million to his own account. So they usually will have a whitelisted one, and only approval of multiple signers or multiple factors will allow to add a different withdrawal address. And so I think this is something when you set up the corporate account, you will figure out that won't be
Yeah.
a real problem, I think. Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking at, and I think, and I know that the corporate accounts are going to take a while, probably. Um, and in the interim, until we have that set up, it's, I'm looking at like what we'll do, or maybe if
Yeah.
the dexes aren't fully live. Um, so yes, definitely. I know I did check with Bitfinex if they offer any multi-sig kind of system like that, and they said they did not. Um, I do think you're right on the Bitfinex and Bitpanda will have those corporate accounts and in place. I also did reach out to, I can't remember who it was, but the one that IF uses
Mm.
for custodial
Cryp-
and
Crypto finance or crypto storage. Yeah.
yeah, and they never replied to my email. So of course I should probably follow up and try and send it again. But yeah, in the meantime, it's like just a last resort that would basically be on Bit4X that essentially the committee would send the program lead 10,000 USDT. He would liquidate it on the centralized exchange, and then as soon as he liquidates it, sends it to the Binance USDT, and it would be done in small chunks. I mean, we could even lower this to 5,000. Um, Aside from that aspect, again, the part of this process on a centralized exchange would only be doing limit orders and only sell into bids, meaning not trying to lower the price, but actually, in a sense, always above
Mm.
the current price. So that wouldn't affect market. So yeah, this is like a short-term interim until we can get a corporate account. But hopefully we have enough dexes, and hopefully at least there's some OTC buyers out there, so we won't have to to worry that far down the road. But those are the set of priorities. And again, I think one thing that I saw that I really liked in when I was reviewing it in other ecosystems is this 10% drop in 24-hour period. Like, if anything may not even be occurred from the liquidation, but irregardless, you stop liquidation. And then all that means is that it will take longer times. And I think that will be the idea, is to just constantly be doing a little at a time, so it's not going to affect or stop for a period of time to see if that little bit was, being irregular, not being consistent, so people can't kind of front run things like this. So, yeah. So, I don't know if anyone had any thoughts.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Also sounds good to me. Just watch with the fees. So, of
Mhm.
course, not 5K is 5K or 10K is the same fees.
Mm.
So if you do it twice, then it's twice the fees, of course. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. I'll put check fees on the. Cool. I will try to add in there somewhere to make sure that fees don't go above a certain point or something. Try to minimize your trades in a sense. That kind of what you're saying, Werner?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the point.
yeah, mainly. I
Oh,
mean,
So
mainly.
if
I don't know. Bitforex, how are their fees? Do they have? I think they're like quite cheap when it comes to uh, to maker fees. But yeah, you have to look on the DEXs. You have to look into how the fee structure is. I mean,
mhm.
on the EVM itself, fees will be very, very negligible. So kind of not really something to take into account. But some DEXs, some centralized exchanges, yeah, they put like, I don't know, a percent maker fees or something like this. That's like bad. That will be
Mhm.
costly. Yeah. But I don't think Bitforex has, and also Bitfinex is, as far as I see, pretty cheap in the fees.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yep. Very nice. Cool. So from the audience, any questions on that? If not, what else did we do? We had a nice podcast actually. So JD kicked off this deeper governance podcast, and we had our. It was a pleasure basically to be invited as a first guest.
Yeah.
You can, I think you got it out today on where Spotify. I don't. There's a Twitter account, so maybe you just drop the link in the governance channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
People can listen in. We're talking basically, yeah, the same stuff as always, governance here and there. Well, it was a good chat. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I posted a message, got it up on YouTube and Spotify, and we'll work to get it on Apple iTunes Store. It was really fun, and I think it was just trying to just create just a sort of discussion platform rather than like an interview basis. Just try to do a little different, and that where we can just discuss governance and talk about how governance is in our own ecosystem, other ecosystems, and even in the real world, and how that can transition to the Web3 world. So
Ooh.
give
Then
it
you will
a
have
listen.
to get in Mariana then for one of the whatever.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I did reach out to her already, and she's
Yeah.
happy to join at some
Or
point.
the good thing is you won't have to talk much. She will run the thing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, yes, yes. Cool.
All right.
Nice. So, very well. We're nicely in our 1 hour timing. So if there's nothing else currently coming up from the audience, um, I'd say enjoy your hopefully sunny afternoon or morning or wherever you are, and we'll see us next week again, Thursday, 4 p.m. Already holiday time starting for a couple of those, but no matter. We will continue working through the summer. And yeah, that's actually the plan. As I said, if anyone has some comments on the governance framework, we'll be happy to receive them. Otherwise, for next week, I'll prepare basically a version 2 with yeah, implement most of the changes already, so to you basically see how it would be looking currently, and then maybe I can give some news or updates on EVM and stuff like this, and we'll see. We'll just take what we get. Until then, my friends, have a good one. Have a nice one. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for hopping in. And yeah, see you next Thursday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See ya.